You know what? Actually, you. Let's talk about economics.
Okay.
Donald Trump's tax cuts were great.
Horrible.
Tell me why.
Okay, so
That's music to me. That silence is music.
The role of art is to question our categories.
That's exactly the role of art.
How many innocent civilians are you allowed to kill in the name of defense? That question is not answered. That red line is not drawn. And it's absurd. Why don't each of you describe your political leanings? If you were to say, hey, Roenn, are you conservative or liberal? Or, like, let's say someone who doesn't really know much about politics. How would you describe your political leanings? Each of you. You included, Canadian man. But you first.
I would just say that I base a lot of my politics on what will maximize human well-being for the greatest number of people in a way that is backed up by policy and data.
Okay, that's a cop-out answer. You're aware of that.
I just believe in being good.
So what are you? Are you progressive? Are you left-leaning? Are you conservative?
I'm definitely left-leaning.
Imagine you're talking to someone who doesn't really know that much about, or doesn't care that much about politics.
Yeah, I would say by American terms, I'm definitely pretty solidly on the left, like progressive, social democrat, DemSoc, kind of in that.
Okay. And what about you, you Canadian?
I mean, it's different. It's different up in the frozen north, but I think by American
the average American,
standards,
the only people that matter.
How
would you describe
yourself? I don't necessarily disagree. I would describe myself as probably leaning libertarian in the center. That's probably where I would.
Center libertarian.
Center libertarian.
Okay. I would describe myself as enlightened centrist, which is correct on every issue. That's how I define my politics.
And now, Paul, just for anyone who's not familiar, what's the difference between a centrist and a moderate?
That's a very good question. A moderate is the ultimate archenemy of the centrist. A moderate is someone like Joe Biden or Nancy Pelosi or Mitch McConnell, a facilitator of the status quo, right? A destroyer of all that is necessary and revolutionary for the pursuit of glory and stability in modern society. Oh, this is funny to you. No, but that is, listen, I don't know what to call myself. I make the joke about enlightened centrism because I think it's funny. And it's odd enough. It implies centrism, but it's also like enlightened centrist. Like, what does this guy mean? You know, and it piques curiosity. But I don't know. I'm aware there's a possibility it comes off a little douchey.
Well, I think to conservatives, calling yourself a centrist is a good marketing move. But to anybody on the left and coming from lefty spaces, if you say centrist, they automatically are going to peg you as a right-winger. So that's a brand move that appeals to people who are center or right. But anybody like liberal or left of that hears that word and they're like, dog whistle, right-winger.
Do you perceive that as a problem?
No, it's just a matter of who you're trying to market yourself to. Because any term you use is going to be loaded and people are going to bring their schema into it. So it's just whatever, because you can't please everybody at once.
Okay, but Matt Walsh and Christopher Rufo and all of the classic Daily Wire right-wing conservative media operation, they are just as critical of centrists as like Destiny and any of that crew. So I don't buy this. Well, if you call yourself a centrist, you just mean right wing. It's like that's what right wingers say, except they say left wing is what centrists really are. They say, what's their line? Centrists are just progressives with a speed limit. That's their meme. Because everything just moves left.
I've heard the exact opposite.
It's because you're ignorant.
I haven't either. I mean, there might be a wave
I've never
now
heard
of
anyone
more
say that.
kind of far right people like Matt Walsh that are doing that. But in my experience, going from being a conservative back in the day in those spaces during the Trump era to being on the left now, I've seen it very much like being a centrist appeals to people on the right. Like that's why Dave Rubin got so famous, because his whole shtick was like, I'm the last liberal and I'm like very much in the center.
Hold on.
Pushing right-wing rhetoric.
Let me push back. Centrist and left and right are all relative terms.
True.
So if the culture is very far left, like the Israel-Palestine stuff as an obvious example as of late of the kind of strange absurdity of some of the extreme left-wing stuff.
Yep.
So to be centrist in that regard is like, there's a lot of people who up until like a couple weeks ago would have been like, no, I'm on the left. And now they're like, well, if left means pro-Palestine, or not even pro-Palestine, pro-Hamas, well, now I'm like, okay, now I'm not conservative anymore, so I'm centrist. And there's a lot of people that had that evolution. And again, the conservative Christian position is to be anti-gay marriage, for example. That's like the go-to issue, or abortion, to be life begins at conception. There's so many people who are in the center who don't abide by that. So isn't it a strategic mistake on the part of the left to lump potential allies into the same label as thine enemy? Don't you understand, Benjamin?
It certainly might be. I mean, I think that you can always find in any culture, any time and place, the existence of every type of extreme opinion in every single direction, left, right, up, and down. And so I think that the problem with the term centrism is it's the center between 2 points, but where are the 2 points? Because you're always going to be able to find tanky communists on the left and like theocratic fascists on the right.
Sure.
Does the question become, once that percentage gets big enough, we say that the center is anything between those 2 points, and also how wide is the center? Those are kind of my questions. So it's like, if you say that you're on the left, which I certainly am, that describes pragmatically that I am on the left half of the spectrum.
Relative to the current Overton window.
I think the Overton window is really shaped by individuals' perception of the algorithm and the culture, and that wildly differs between people. That's the hard part, right? Is it's like you can get on your Twitter and have one perception of like you get far right, moderate left content. Sometimes you get super far left and like center content. And so trying to really figure out, have your thumb on the pulse of your cultural zeitgeist, knowing exactly where everybody is positioned, that's almost impossible. So I don't know what the right answer is to that.
John, how do you feel about the term enlightened centrist and all of this nonsense communist propaganda that Roenn just put forward?
One of the problems that I see, and we were talking about this earlier, is that like I feel like a lot of times these terms get a little bit muddled when we're talking about conservative versus centrist versus progressive versus something like liberal, whereas like liberal is a specific set of ideas about how the world should work, whereas progressive and conservative is more of things
left and right and progressive and conservative are relative.
I hear people dog on Dave Rubin, and I'm not a huge fan of Dave Rubin, but to me it's like, well, based off of my understanding of his beliefs, there is potential. I don't know if he's being honest about what he believes, but I think there's a potential for his logic to actually be consistent, where it's like, if you believed in the liberal idea before that was actually instantiated by your own perception, you'd be progressive. And then once that became the case, you'd have to become a conservative because you wanted it to change, you got what you wanted, then you want it to stay the same. And that to me is a problem in the discourse. It's like people throw around these words without, I think, being precise enough to really communicate, okay, what are we trying to say when we're talking about where do you lean politically? Because to me, the entire thing is, do you want things to change? Do you want things to stay the same? And then we can break down in what ways do you want those dynamics.
I have a tangent.
Yes.
Dave Rubin.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be honest. Did you see my Enlightened Centrist tier list video?
Yes, I did.
Dave Rubin is the Nickelback of centrism.
I agree.
Everyone has to hate on him. Now, here's the thing. I can't immediately point to a reason why I hate Dave Rubin, other than the please clap thing.
Mm-hmm.
You saw that?
That was rough.
I'm proud to say, I am a conservative. You can clap at that. Oh, okay. I thought we were going to get it bigger. Yeah. That's bad, right? But other than that, is there a reason Dave Rubin in particular gets so much shit and deserves that much shit? Because I don't know this for a fact. I seem to remember a clip of like Joe Rogan or something talking about Dave Rubin, although he didn't reference him by name.
I've seen the clip.
Saying that like some people are like, what's your angle? Are you in like TV or whatever? Are you like this or that? And Dave Rubin's kind of a grifter, and he started off as a comedian and he did all this stuff. But I can't point to a specific reason other than the please clap bit as to why people hate Dave Rubin so much.
If I can just jump in real quick, there was that one clip on Joe Rogan where he was trying to justify not having
the building codes?
The deregulation.
Building codes and deregulation of like
that's
postal
that's
service
cringe.
shit.
Yeah. That's cringe. Hey, left wing, these libertarians, man, cringe. I agree with you. Enlightened centrists unite against these.
Yeah, I would just say
building codes. What are we?
The thing about Stalin, Dave Rubin is that he started off as being like, I'm like the last liberal and I'm the only reasonable liberal left in the space. And then he began to market himself as a centrist, being like, I just love to talk about high level ideas, And then he started off having on a decent range of guests, people like Sam Harris, As it went on, it became very evident that almost every guest he has on and all his talking points just push like GOP standard party line talking points. Everything on economics, about deregulation, about just everything in the broad economy. And after years and years, he finally just came out and said, yeah, I'm a conservative, because that became his shtick. So, he is 100% funded by Koch money. He works very closely with PragerU.
That's KOCH.
KOCH.
Not COKE.
Yes, not Coca-Cola.
He'd be singing a very different tune.
This.
Yeah. Yeah, if it was Coke money. So he basically validated all of the stereotypical, like, I'm a liberal, but like, dude, you're conservative. And then he finally came out. And said
he became the scapegoat for that, and then he kind of tried to be like he's a centrist, and he is just the Rush Limbaugh of online talking.
Are there
spaces.
particular positions you noticed him change on? You're like, wow, you used to believe this, and now you believe this. Not just progressive to conservative, but like specific issues?
Basically just everything economic, everything to do with regulation, with tax policy, with the concept of social safety nets. He switched to the whole like pull yourself up by your bootstraps rhetoric.
Right. He
very
became
much
libertarian, essentially.
Yeah, super. And coming from the Young Turks, being as progressive as he was, making that much money, transferring over to his current show where he makes like absolute bank. And if you like look at his guests, I forget the organization. It's been years since I looked into this, but it's Koch affiliated organizations that give Dave Rubin lists of guests, and they're all from like Americans for Prosperity, all of those think tanks that he has on just to push essentially right-wing GOP propaganda to drive votes in that direction. That's his main function.
Can I push back on that for 1 second? Because like I remember I've heard similar arguments appealing to a variety of different voices in the space about how like, well, they only have this type of guest on. And my interpretation of what the landscape looks like is like, it seems like right-leaning or conservative people are more willing to go on anyone's podcast, and left-leaning people will only go on left-leaning podcasts.
Are cowards.
Good point.
That to me is like, well, that kind of throws a wrench in that entire metric. Though I don't necessarily disagree with you on Dave Rubin more generally.
That used to be my perception too. Whenever I was more of a conservative libertarian, I took the word of people like Dave Rubin or Dennis Prager. They're like, we ache to debate them. We want to have the left-leaning people on our show. They won't come on. They're against free speech. And I believe that for a very long time. Well, that's just kind of been their line for years and years, is that the left won't debate. And then I got into people like Destiny, people like Vosh, Kyle Kalinske, Sam Cedar, Dave Pacman. And these people love the debate. They'll talk to anybody, any day of the week. And now it's flipped for me because I see these people trying to debate. People like Ben Shapiro will debate. Dennis Prager will debate. Tim Pool, Dave Rubin, who else? Steven Crowder. They will not go on and debate certain people, like Sam Cedar, for instance. And so I see it flip now to where whenever left YouTube grew really big after maybe 2017, 2018, because prior to that, it was just a conservative space for the most part. The left is super open to debating. They are generally the people that I follow are very, very pro-free speech, but it's many conservatives that actually will not come on and do that. Namely, again, people like Crowder, Tim Pool, Rubin, stuff like that. Especially Crowder and Rubin, because they will not have debates because they're just not good at it.
Destiny,
yes,
and Ben Shapiro. Did you see on, I forget what it was, Ben Shapiro was on some podcast, and they said, would you want to debate Destiny?
Yes.
And Ben Shapiro kind of meekly was like, I'm like, fine. It's like, oh, okay. That was a giveaway right there.
Yeah.
A Ben Shapiro versus Destiny debate would be epic.
It's happening next month.
I'm going to hit that playback speed.
Oh, is it actually?
0.5 playback speed real quick.
Wow.
Don't get early onset schizophrenia from listening to regular Destiny versus Ben Shapiro.
But yes, it's happening.
What is the topic?
In November. I don't know yet. I know that Lex Friedman is facilitating it, and I believe it's set to happen in like late November at some point.
Do you guys think that the world of media is changing to the point where geniuses like us with a historic career of quality commentary are going to take over from the MSNBC and Fox News shills? How long until this podcast determines who will be president of the United States?
I think the transition's already happening. The problem I see is that all of the same incentives that have screwed corporate media still apply to the online YouTube space. And we see this, again, with people like Dave Rubin or PragerU, where as long as you have the interest of powerful lobbies and corporations and interests trying to fund people, and then audience capture happens and you have that feedback loop that happens in media, all the same incentives for corruption and bad faith propaganda are still there. I used to be like, dude, YouTube, the internet's going to take over. It's going to be awesome. It's the same problem now with Alex Jones's show, with any of these people. It's the same incentives to push propaganda, be bad faith. They're making money from certain advertisers, So I don't know what the path forward is. But
are there
with Alex Jones in particular? What do you mean? What is you think he's under a profit incentive?
Yeah, for sure. Well, so it's a combination of profit incentive and also audience capture, right? So it's like there's a
mental illness
and mental illness majorly,
which unironically is like a legitimate third of that equation at least.
For sure.
Did you see his podcast with Joe Rogan where he said he was dropped on his head like 4 times?
Yeah, and he was like, "Sorry, Joe, I'm kind of retarded."
Yeah, literally that
iconic.
Like, see, this is just real quick
representation.
This is a podcast of tangents, just to be clear. Alex Jones, cannot believe that was not topic number 1. Alex Jones absolutely is mentally ill.
For sure.
And this is what pisses me off about people who want to censor Alex Jones, is we can't have a Sandy Hook denier, da-da-da. It's like, listen.
That's the stupidest argument.
If you let people listen to him, they would clearly come away with the conclusion, this guy's a little fucking off. And that's exactly what I suspect most people who listen to him believe. Now, obviously, there's a small minority of people, we don't know, who buy into that shit full send. And increasingly, it's not like it's helping when, you have like Epstein and shit and all that stuff. Like, you're really not helping debunk, Alex Jones here when that shit happens. So, but I have, this is a religious claim or religious belief I have, which is most individuals, you have to have faith that most individuals are able to discern authenticity from inauthenticity. So, for example, if Alex Jones was a paid plant of some kind, that would manifest in his behavior. But he is genuinely pursuing these delusions that I think are delusions because he's mentally ill. Partly, but he's also partly correct sometimes, obviously.
Sure.
You're a conspiracy theorist if you say otherwise.
Of course.
That he's not sometimes correct on sometimes important issues.
We should always give credit where credit's due. I'm a big fan of calling balls and strikes and being like, when a person gets a thing right, even if they're crazy, I do want to acknowledge that they have done that because that's fair.
Right. Do you think Alex Jones should be censored?
No, I mean, I'm generally pretty anti-censorship. I don't want the government to come in and ban people from being able to speak ever.
He's progressive, so I was worried about asking him that. Nowadays, you never know.
No, I mean,
I cannot be too careful with
I
these
believe
people.
that I mean, companies have a right to have TOS. I mean, you can kick people off your platform for violating specific things in your terms of service. What I do want is for platforms to be much more transparent about exactly why they've banned people, because I don't like this thing where big tech does kick people off the platform and they don't tell them why. I'm for some kind of law that allows TOS but forces companies to explicitly give reasons of here's what you said of why we banned you. That seems fair to me.
I totally agree. If we're going to have TOS, then it needs to be actual like it can't just be vague.
It's a little neoliberal shill for me, but that's better than no, you don't get to have a platform like they did with Kanye or something like that.
Sure.
Again,
like that's so
and I
toxic to the discourse. Helps no.
I think on principle, I do not see an argument for how censorship is good ever. Now, like with like criminal stuff, obviously, like, stuff relating to children, no shit, duh. But like anytime it comes to ideas, the moment you censor a Kanye West or an Alex Jones, what their whole platform is, these people are trying to censor me. And then you go and censor him. It's like, are you stupid? That's what pisses me off, is intelligent people believing that everyone else is not smart enough to ingest the information that they ingest. It's like, or you could stop being a complete asshole, and then you have to acknowledge, like, okay, well, like the turning the frickin' frogs gay thing. It's like, okay, well, the atrazine chemical does have shitty effects. Like, to say, oh, well, we should just kind of acknowledge it on the side. It's like, well, now you've made so many more conspiracy theorists than you could have if you just said, yeah, of course, like, everyone knows there's we're in an age where there's like tons of microplastics and chemicals in the water. It's not that controversial to acknowledge that.
Didn't that issue turn out to be like that chemical it messes with frogs' chromosomes and their gonads, but it doesn't turn them like gay as in like homosexual, but it does screw with their physiology.
It's so interesting because I would argue that turning gay is less of a significant change than changing your sex.
Sure.
So arguably Alex Jones was not going far enough in terms of what he was claiming that atrazine was doing. But before we go down that rabbit hole, I do have an interesting question because you mentioned the Koch brothers funding Dave Rubin. What do you know about George Soros?
I know some about George Soros.
How do you Go on. Sorry, I shouldn't have interrupted. So
No,
quickly.
I mean, what do you
know about George Soros?
I don't know every affiliated group that he has, I'm sure. I mean, so he is kind of the left-wing equivalent of the Koch brothers in that he has a lot of money. He funds a lot of think tanks, and there's sort of Soros subsidiary organizations that do give money to a lot of left-wing campaigns. So yeah, he is a
Do you think
big
that?
benefactor.
Do you think that it is? Because I know people who are not political at all who, when they hear someone talk about George Soros, they go, "Oh, that person's an Alex Jones fan because he said the word George Soros." Do you think that's fair, or do you think that George Soros, like, because I think it is reasonable to point out, like, the Koch brothers influence politics in these ways, with all this money in these organizations. To me, I think it's fair to point out that George Soros does the same thing.
Yeah.
But it seems like one is much more likely to get you called a right-wing freakazoid, as certain Canadian YouTubers have called me.
Yeah, well, just because I think a reason why that happens is a lot of people that I see bring up Soros, they do what they call Soros posting, where they just have all these super kind of vague, unsubstantiated conspiracies about him. I am always for any claim is fine to make as long as you can back it up with evidence and you bring receipts and we can have a good faith conversation about it. I think there are some people that ruin the discourse by bringing up issues that there is a reasonable version of that argument, but they corrupt it and ruin it by taking it to such weird, crazy places that they poison the well on that rhetoric. And so now whenever you bring up George Soros, people jump on that train. But I'm open to anything about that guy that can be backed up. I mean, that's totally fair to bring up.
What do you think, John? Do you agree?
I agree.
Okay. Do you guys want to start the podcast now?
Let's do it.
I agree.
All right.
with that.
Abortion. We're just gonna cycle through the most controversial issues of our day,
All right.
and I will explain to each/both/either of you why you're incorrect and I'm right. Abortion. What's the proper way to ask this? Do you? I believe you and I are aligned on this.
I think so. I watched your thing with fucking
Andrew Wilson.
Yeah, with Andrew.
Yeah. Do you believe that the moment a sperm fertilizes an egg, that is a human being?
Yes.
Okay. So if a 19-year-old girl takes a abortion pill, I'm sure there's a more formal name for that, and premeditatively kills that sperm and egg, zygote, do you believe that girl, 19-year-old girl, should be charged with first-degree murder?
Logically, yes. However, I don't think that treating that in that way is reasonable in a society, and I think that is probably to the detriment of the greater good is the way that I put it. But I think that if we're going to address it logically, I can't find an argument that makes the answer no.
Okay. Hold that thought.
Sure.
We can open up a can of whoop ass right now.
Do it.
What do you think about what he just said?
I mean, I think that I understand the desire to want to be a hardliner on abortion because it's a gray line of where matter becomes personhood.
Yes.
It's very, very hard. And we can't draw any absolute lines.
Well, we can.
Well, okay.
We can.
You can.
And they
There's
do.
two. There's two.
And they do. And it's not utterly unreasonable.
Sure.
I like the moment a sperm fertilizes an egg, if you're going to pick an arbitrary line to draw, that's probably the most logical one. I agree logically.
I phrase it really particularly for a very particular reason. But I think there's
been watching some PF Young, I'll tell you that.
There's two lines in my opinion, and it's either birth, the moment it's out the ute chute, or conception.
That's a great name for it.
Yeah, I know.
I believe Ben Shapiro mocks the argument that, like, he's like, is there something magical about a woman's private parts that confer personhood onto a baby? It's like, no, but neither is there a moment of magic the moment a sperm fertilizes an egg.
I would disagree with you. It's new DNA. That's like, to me, that is a logical argument.
All right, we're gonna take 5 here and figure out how to fucking clean this shit up.
No, but I want to hear the rest of what Roenn was going to say. Sorry to interrupt, man.
If you look at the process when a sperm fertilizes an egg, and it's been years since biology, so I forget if it's mitosis or meiosis. It's mitosis, right? Whenever the two, it's in that.
That's
process,
not what we're going to get canceled for. Okay?
There's a million lines where the DNA begins to unzip, it combines, the cells start to divide. I don't think even in that process of it fertilizing the egg, there are thousands of steps involved in exactly what's happening. So I don't know of an exact moment where you can say, and then what would the argument be that a soul comes into existence at that moment?
I don't believe in souls.
Okay. So just the fact that it's new DNA.
Obviously.
Okay. So the moment, so a sperm and an egg by themselves don't count as life because they don't have the other half of that information.
No, of course.
All right, now he's gaslighting us.
No,
okay,
of course. A sperm and an egg are not a human.
Okay.
But when they combine and create a new sequence of DNA, then that's a very logical. And I'm not like trying to make any policy prescription here. I'm just saying, as a logical argument, that's the only line you can draw, other than it's out of the.
And this is where we probe you. Okay, I want to explore this deeply.
Yeah.
All right, every part of it.
I'm open to being wrong.
Okay, and probed. You said logically this makes sense, but you don't believe it's a reasonable prescription for society to act as if that's the case, right? It wouldn't make sense to imprison a 19-year-old girl, or at least charge her with the same crime of someone, like committing murder full on, like premeditated.
Yeah.
I'm going to find this person and kill them. So how do you square that? Because logically, that's, like you said,
I don't believe that
first-degree murder.
I don't believe that all of our laws are based off of logic. I think they're all sequenced within a
That's
goal.
fucking based. Okay? I agree with that.
Yeah.
Sure. But how do you rationalize that?
I don't think there's anything to rationalize. I don't think I've contradicted myself, have I? I've said that logically this is one thing, but we don't make our laws based off just logic, because logic has to be subservient to a goal.
Sure. Let me cut in real quick. So I think we do base our laws off of logic, but logic is just a process that gets us from point A to point B. And so the thing that defines that end goal are our emotions, right? So we do emotionally pick our goals and the things that we think are good or bad, and then we use logic to then get to that goal. So it's a combination of logic and
motivation
and
motivated
emotion
frames
together.
Okay, so let me ask this question. Sorry, not to go too deep into the weeds. Would you guys describe yourselves as epistemological pragmatists, or do you reject that utterly?
I would say generally, yeah.
Wow, you've been watching a lot of Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, maybe so.
Me too, John.
Hey,
what do you
back in the
think?
day.
You're going to have to explain that term to me.
See, that's a problem. I was hoping.
So
I was hoping you'd explain it to me.
I'm not that smart.
I don't agree with Jordan Peterson's idea that just because a thing is useful makes it true. I think that most true things happen.
That's a highly reductive.
Yeah, well, I think that most things that are true happen to be useful, but a thing's usefulness doesn't make it true. And the example that they gave in the Sam Harris debate with JP was, if you teach children that a porcupine can throw its quills, is that statement true? They can't throw their quills, but if you tell a kid that, they'll stay so far away from porcupines that they won't get speared. So is that statement true? I would say no. And I would differentiate usefulness from truth because
metaphorical truth.
Yeah, because truth is what is, and pragmatism is what is useful to a certain end. And we have to be able to differentiate those things. Otherwise, you get lost in this Petersonian hellscape of like, just because a thing is useful makes it true, and then you get to arguing for every single monotheistic religion is simultaneously true because they're pragmatic, and I don't subscribe to that.
I mean,
go ahead.
Just in the argument you just made, it's like, well, some are more pragmatic than others because they outcompete each other. So to the degree that you're using that framework, you could say one is more true than the other because one is more in line with the rules of reality and thus outcompetes the other one.
You can't deny Darwin. Reality is that which selects.
Yep.
So if your belief system is selected for, at least relative to another belief system over an extended period of time, thousands, if not tens of thousands of years, then there must be some match between the propositional statements laid out in that belief system or whatever and the reality that does the selecting, if you agree that reality is that which selects, which is the Darwinian axiom.
I mean, maybe. I think that these belief systems survive because they provide people with community, and then you share resources, and there's some kind of general moral structure of how to live your life. So, I mean, and that's why cults work.
You agree some are better than others?
By my values, sure.
Well,
hold on.
And certain interpretations.
You hear that shit?
And certain interpretations are better than others.
He said, by my values.
Yeah,
careful.
Because I don't
left-wing relativist here.
I don't believe in objective values.
But do you believe in competition?
Yes, but all I can ever give you are my personal values that come from the nature of my brain that I did not author, and my level of empathy.
We're about to have an intervention here because this man just said he doesn't believe in objective values.
I don't.
Okay. Are we still good on audio, Mike? All still good? Okay.
Mine's still working.
Yes. Okay. Oh, I see. Mine's coming through. Okay. Objective values.
Mm-hmm.
Are you
define
fucking
the
high
word
right now?
Let's define the word objective. You go first.
No, that's like defining the word yellow. It's like I can't give a definition for it. I can only reference it qualitatively. Go ahead. All right, define objective.
For a thing to be objective, it must be attitude independent. That is the general line in philosophy that my friend Landon, shout out to Landon, taught me. So if it's attitude, so it is independent of our perception, it is still true. Like rocks exist. I can perceive the rock, but after I die, that rock still exists.
I actually don't believe that
that rocks exist. So.
That's an objectively true statement.
I'm not sure rocks exist, to be honest. No,
Dwayne Johnson is a CGI creation.
The statement
I refute.
the statement, Seether is a good or bad band is completely attitude dependent because it only exists within your brain coming
right there.
from your
Let's
judgments.
talk about that.
Yep.
Do you agree that some art or that some music is objectively better than other music?
No.
Okay, that's a problem. Because hold on. Okay, let's scope it out. Do you think that music as an objective category exists? Do you think there is such a thing as music?
Sure.
Okay. Objectively?
I mean, we define what music is.
No, we don't.
I think we
music
do.
preceded language historically, arguably. I believe that's the case, but I'm not going to lean on that. But let's say we don't need words and language to feel music and to have an emotional response to music.
I mean, we perceive sound. That's like sensory data.
Sound is very different from music.
I don't know if I agree with that.
That's the thing is it's like there are people that like ambient music. There's people that, like there's some stuff by Aphex Twin that some people don't consider music.
Did this man just bring up Aphex Twin?
I did
Are you
indeed.
fucking kidding me?
Hold on. Do you know who CJ the X is? Okay, that's a problem. Number one, I would say that's a problem for most living beings. If you do not know who CJ the X is,
he's a Canadian.
Oh, okay.
He's a dirty Canadian.
Somehow Canada has produced all of these high quality figures. I do not know why, and we ended up with this.
They made Dead Mouse. I give Canada props for that.
Hold on. Because I've had this argument before with other musician friends. Like, is there an objective standard by which music is good versus not good? I would broaden that out to say, can we describe some things as music and some things as not music? That's an easier distinction, but it's the same question.
I think it all just comes down to your personal opinion. I
mean, it can't be because
we can collectively agree on standards, but that doesn't make them objective.
Wrong.
It just makes them shared.
You've been Vosh-brained, okay? This bullshit about collectively agreeing, okay? Music is a human universal, which means that different humans independently arrived at music or arrived at the production of music outside of some, like music started first in this area and then it spread wherever. It's like our bodies are attuned to music. You can measure the physiological response you have to different songs, right? A very deep song like classical music is going to inspire a different physiological reaction than, me just clapping. Is this music?
Yes.
Yes.
It is.
It is.
Is it of the same quality and depth as whatever insert your favorite song here is?
Depends on what you need in the moment. And
this is how I know I'm right, okay? Because then it's just cop-out bullshit. Right? Now, listen, I know I'm right, because I do that all the time. When I know I'm wrong, I just cop-out bullshit like that. So
no.
Listen,
that's
you
facts.
did what I did when I'm wrong, so I know you're wrong, and I'm right in this case, okay? It is very strange for me when musicians in particular suggest that all music is, or all sound, it's all subjective what good music versus bad music is. It's like, no, you're appealing to some standard that is beyond collective agreement. It's a human universal. It's art.
Yeah, but the collective
That's like
agreement
the archetypal
differs
realm
among people broadly. I mean, there are different sects of people that have different collective agreements on what good music is. There's people that love Justin Bieber. I don't, or his old stuff. I didn't.
So hold on.
He
So
was 13.
At the margins,
people loved it.
At the margins, I agree. Like, you can like Justin Bieber and I can like Red Hot Chili Peppers, whatever. But if you look. The circle, we were just talking about this, the circle of fifths and
I'm
music
about to
theory.
destroy this man's whole life, by the way.
Hold on. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
All music cross-culturally abides by the same fundamental laws of music theory.
Well, it's the laws of physics, but sure.
Okay.
It's just frequencies.
It's just frequencies.
Of course.
You disgust me.
As
a musician,
no.
if you were to honestly look me in the face and say, hey, this music that I pour my soul into, that has actually like gotten me through like
and it's not for everyone at all times.
It's just frequencies. It's like that is the most postmodern bullshit I've ever heard.
No, that's deeply human, and you're completely wrong.
All right, you know what?
No.
Get the fuck out.
Okay. Have you heard of? No, not to be too cliche, but have you heard of the piece of music? I think it's called 403. You might know this, Roenn.
I don't think so.
It's a blank page. Okay, it's an entire sheet of music.
Yep.
At I think like 88 BPM or something, but there's no notes.
Okay.
And the pianist comes out and he sits and he opens up the piano.
He doesn't play anything.
He doesn't play anything for 4 minutes and 3 seconds.
Music.
And everyone claps.
Right.
Because the role of art is to question our categories. That's music to me. That silence is music.
The role of art is to question our categories.
That's exactly the role of art.
I'd have to think about that. Because if I listen to a very deep song, that's hold on. To question our categories, how about to reaffirm the most ancient deep categories, the archetypal categories?
Well, sometimes the question is that I had it right. Sometimes the answer to the question is I already know.
All right.
But you're supposed to ask.
All right, I have won this debate.
Question.
Wait, what
do you think?
Can I bring this back to the values question real quick?
Please do.
I think to come at it from another angle.
Lord of the Rings is not questioning anyone's fucking values. Right? It's
reaffirming questioning every fucking value. Are you crazy?
I want to have the humility as a person to never claim that I have the objective answers, especially when it comes to questions of ethics or morality. So whenever I give an answer to a question, I'm making a judgment that comes from my brain and how I feel. And my brain is not the same as other people's brains. You can make an argument that most humans share enough of our base values in common, if you're not like a total sociopath, that we can get along enough to share in those values. But it is, at the end of the day, a judgment that has to come from consciousness, from a conscious being. It has to pass through a filter of subjectivity to ascribe goodness or badness onto something. Like they say, what is chaos to the fly is order for the spider, right? So is it good or bad when the fly dies? That depends on if the fly and the spider could talk, who you ask, right? So value to me has to enter reality at the membrane of our consciousness, perceiving reality. It does not exist in reality in things. So that's whenever I say things are subjective, it comes from my attitudes and my brain that, again, I did not author. And I want to have the humility to be able to admit that and not claim that everything that I happen to think is good or bad lines up perfectly with objective reality.
Okay. Are there not objective parameters that shape your subjective frame by which you filter what's good or bad?
There are parameters in my brain that shape it, sure, but people
No. Are there not are there not forces outside of your subjective preference? This is my fundamental issue with Vosh. He says, well, if we can all agree collectively on a set of axioms of what my preferences are, it's like, bro, you don't choose your preferences. They're conditioned outside of you.
To some
not
extent.
only biologically, but also
extent.
Culturally.
To some extent. I mean,
completely.
Evolution, I think evolution has obviously selected for survival to some extent, but there are people that don't value the survival of a lot of people. They are okay with genocide.
Yeah,
they're okay.
Psychopathy is a exception to everything we talk about.
Suicidality is a thing, you know? I mean, we can talk about shared agreement of things, but not everybody values the continued survival of every other person, you know? So it's like we tend to value our survival, but I value the survival also of all people as much as I can. Some people don't care. Their values are my group survives. I don't care what happens to any other group, any other race, any other country. And that's the values of a lot of people.
But so do you at the end of the day. You would choose your family over strangers.
I would choose them if it came down to it.
But that's what I mean.
But in a perfect world, I would want to value all lives equally if I didn't have to make a trade-off. You know?
Okay. Wow.
But I would value my family over strangers, of course.
As would all of us.
Subjectively, I've come to the conclusion that I just utterly owned both of you in this discussion. So we're going to move on, unless you guys object.
No, I'm good with moving on. I mean, just keep in mind the attitude independence thing. I would ponder that.
To me, the same way of what you just said is something I think we've talked about before. Is like reality is the thing you run into when your ideas are wrong. That is the same. That's just a rearticulation of that idea. Because I think I agree with you. It's like, yeah, there is objective truth out there somewhere. And it is attitude independent because it doesn't matter how you feel about it. You're going to run into it if you don't align yourself with it.
Yeah.
That's the way I feel about it.
Then there's how we feel.
But that is objective.
Well,
that's sort of... Okay, but hold on. Well, I'm going to take a wild guess and say we're not going to get to the bottom of metaphysics tonight.
Probably not. At a later time.
I'm already there. Don't worry about it.
At a later time, we can deep dive epistemology.
You guys aren't going to.
Yeah, you guys can join me later. All right. Let's talk about another issue.
We can keep it light. Go Israel, Palestine.
I was just going to say, that was next on my list. Israel, Palestine. Okay. Obviously, today's the 31st of October. So we could be on the verge of actual World War III, which is fucking insane. I have opinions about the degree to which the United States should be involved. I'd be curious to hear from either of you so that you guys get canceled before I do. So who would like to go first? John?
Sure. Okay, I'll caveat in saying...
Could you give a summary of your perspective on the situation in Israel
I do not
Palestine?
feel like I understand the history of the region well enough to have
Good.
a strong opinion one way or the other.
Same.
I've looked into it. I've tried to figure out what the fuck's been going on there for the past however many hundreds or thousands of years. I still don't feel like I have a firm enough grasp. However, I don't think that United States involvement in this conflict is appropriate based off what I know so far.
Okay.
And I do think that nations have a divine right to go to war. So if nations want to go to war, they should. That's what I think.
Fair.
It's horrible, but
I'm generally okay with supplying defense to our allies. I'm generally not okay with supplying offense, especially if they become the aggressors in any given conflict. I generally support de-escalation. If people invade you, if they're coming into your space, like with Russia and Ukraine, I support us backing Ukraine defensively. With Israel, it's a little bit different because what Hamas did was an atrocious act of terror, and it was horrifying and terrible. And then, in my opinion, Israel has vastly come down with the hammer and committed that atrocity, 10 times over in Palestine. And that I just view it like all human lives generally are equal. I mean, if you have like murdered a person, then you're like guilty for that. But if you're just like an innocent person, children in Israel or children in Gaza are equivalent to me in their human value. So any loss of life like that is a tragedy. And I think being in Israel's position with the level of power they have, the ability to go in with special ops, with boots on the ground and target Hamas specifically, and them not doing that, dropping well over 10,000 bombs on Gaza, which is a strip of land that is not very long. It's about as big as the metroplex that we're in right now. To me, is just it. I mean, it is an act of genocide, and I can't support that. I think Israel has a right to exist. I don't want them to be attacked by Hamas. They're an evil organization. But whenever they turn around and I mean, the estimated rate of the percent deaths that are civilian is 90 to 95%. And most of those people, at least half, are children because half of the population of Gaza is under 18. And so that to me is just indefensible. I forgot what your original question was.
I mean, that was just generally what is your perspective on the situation?
Yeah. So I'm okay with us backing Israel for their Iron Dome. If they are attacked, I want them to be able to defend themselves, obviously. But if they're going into Gaza, carpet bombing it indiscriminately, I absolutely do not support us backing that because I believe that is an evil action by a government and a leader that I view as pretty authoritarian. So,
yes, I agree with you.
Yeah, I feel like we're pretty in line because I've seen a lot of your content on it, but that's just sad.
Yeah, I think that we. When we say we're going to give we have an ironclad agreement with Israel no matter what. They have a divine right to defend themselves. It's like, okay, sure, theoretically. How many innocent civilians are you allowed to kill in the name of defense? That question is not answered. That red line is not drawn, and it's absurd. That's what pisses me off.
Yeah.
Because well, we mourn for innocent Gazans. No, you fucking don't. If you are not going to say, well, there's no number of Gazans who would be killed that would be too many for us because we're defending ourselves. First off, Israel continues to have every right to burn alive every Hamas terrorist in their territory, as far as I'm concerned.
Sure.
In whatever way they want. Once the threat has been neutralized, and now we're talking about moving into Gaza, that's no longer defense.
It totally becomes offense.
Yeah, if there's active rocket installations, okay. And, of course, the IDF will say every single target, every single bomb we've dropped was on an active military target. There just happen to be civilians there. It's like, why should I believe that? It very much bothers me that we say we have an ironclad commitment with Israel no matter what. It's like, why is that the case exactly? Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. Sure. Radical Islam is a problem. Duh. Like 5 or 10 years ago, that was like a controversial position. Oh, you're criticizing Islam. It's like, no shit. We were right to criticize Islam. And so I understand that, and I also understand from the perspective of Israel, Israel would not exist without the backing of the United States. So it is obviously in their interest to influence and lobby the United States for their benefit, which is exactly what happens.
Yeah.
And whether it's, it's AIPAC, I believe it is, what is it? American Israel Political Action Committee or whatever.
Yep.
The Israel lobby broadly. They absolutely exert a significant amount of influence over U.S. foreign policy. And that is a problem. I don't think any other country has the degree of influence that they do. Now, again, not many other countries have the necessity to influence the United States. Like the UK doesn't need the United States backing as much as Israel does to survive. But I do not like that criticism of Israel and criticism of Netanyahu and criticism of radical Judaism, which is the equivalent of radical Islam, is somehow met with accusations. Oh, whoa, what are you, anti-Semitic or something? Or
yeah, well, that's been happening for forever. I mean, every group, if they can, likes to appeal to pity. If you can get it, if you can turn every accusation against your government, against any policy, you can reframe it
Bigotry.
as, oh, well, you're just bigoted against us as a people. And it is an effective defense to appeal to shame and pity like that. And it's pathetic, but groups do it. I've always been very...
Because it works.
Yeah, because it works. And I've always been very outspoken against the government of Israel, but that has nothing to do with Jewish people as human beings. It's purely the
policy.
The
people who are arguably who hate the current Israeli government more than anyone, and who are the victims of the Israeli government's policies, are Jewish people.
Yeah.
And it's, it is the radical right-wing Orthodox arm that does all this crazy shit about rebuilding the Temple Mount and, believing that they're God's chosen people and their rights matter more, which is what Itamar Ben-Gvir said explicitly. My rights as a Jew matters more than the rights of Arabs.
Yep.
Me and my family's right. It's like, that is... I do not see a difference between that and saying we are the master race. I do not see a difference.
No difference.
The founders of Israel said some crazy shit. There's insane quotes.
So
those guys.
One of the silver linings, to the degree that there is one in this, is the degree to which people go, okay, you know what? When bullshit happens in a country like Israel, we can call it out for what it is and not sit here and go, oh, well, I don't want to be labeled an anti-Semite or whatever. It's like, it is like we were talking about how the word gaslighting is thrown around too much, but it's like, listen, if to criticize genocide. No, we weren't. What are you fucking talking about? To criticize genocide, to criticize war crimes, and perhaps genocide is too strong of a word. This is the problem. This is the problem with this issue in particular. As all of us, I'm sure, in the same boat, do not fucking have any idea what the truth is on the ground.
Sure.
So it's very difficult. All I can do, all I can do is take in information from people who I regard as trustworthy. And this issue in particular has split the political landscape so 50-50 down the middle, in that there are very intelligent people, not to sound like Trump, on both sides of this, but truly, there's 40 or 50 people who I normally am okay, on any given issue, I trust these people. They're split on this 100%, 50 or 50-50 rather. So it's but just Israel has all the power in this scenario compared to Gaza.
Yeah.
And so the responsibility is theirs to exercise restraint. And then you say, well, how dare you ask Israel to exercise restraint after what happened to them?
They have a right to defend themselves.
Exactly. I wish people had told the United States to exercise restraint after what happened in 9/11.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
for sure.
To me, a slight difference in my thinking, the way you just phrased that, is but the United States didn't ask any other country to help them do the shit after 9/11. Because like if Israel wants to respond in a way after a terrorist attack, in my mind, for the most part, it's like, that's not any of my fucking business. Whatever terrible shit goes on, I don't know enough to cast a judgment one way or another. But I certainly don't think that Canada or the United States should be
but that's a problem.
Obliged to involve ourselves.
That scenario does not exist. Whatever
well,
Israel
you just brought
does,
up the 9/11 example. It's like, well, after 9/11, the United States did some terrible stuff, but it would have been worse if we were. Well, I guess they did rope in like Canada and UK. So maybe it's a bad example.
Killed millions and
but
millions
that makes it worse
civilians.
that they brought in these other countries to like do shit. It's like, this isn't your fight to the degree it was even America's fight in that.
There's no scenario where Israel can do what they can do and not bring in the United States, because they have a significant degree of influence over our foreign policy.
Yeah.
So there is no scenario where they can do whatever they want, we don't get involved. Whatever they do, we get involved in. And that's the fundamental problem, is just blind support. And I think that's ridiculous.
That is the problem to me. It's like, well, that shouldn't be the case.
If it was the UK, and the UK, I don't, if this is a ridiculous parallel, but if England started doing shit to Ireland, we stand with the UK no matter what they do. Yeah. It's like, what? Why? Why don't we examine the situation on the ground?
Yeah. I mean, the thing that pisses me off about this issue is people's seeming inability to just have a common sense, consistent moral position. It feels like everybody's either like, if you criticize what Israel does in any way that is considered anti-Semitic, and if you criticize Hamas, then you're a Zionist shill or whatever. Yeah. That why can't people just have a consistent moral framework that civilian deaths are bad, that human life has value, and that both what Hamas did was horrible and you should not go to bat for them in any way, and the IDF's response is also horrible and completely, what is the term, it is not a proportionate response, right? That it seems like that take is so common sense to me, but people online are so divided, and you have to back one side or the other, and that's just not. I feel like we lose the plot whenever we start saying that some lives have more value than other lives, and we just accept massive civilian casualties because all we care about are the civilizations surviving. And I kind of take the position of the late Chris Hitchens, rest in peace. That he said that Israel has a right to exist, absolutely. But if the UN and Britain and the Zionists wanted to pick the worst possible spot in the world to establish it that would ensure a century of bloodshed, they did a good job at picking the most insane spot that they could have.
Describe to me in more detail what you mean when you say they have a right to exist. What do you mean by that?
That I think that the Jewish people have a right to a homeland, given the history of them being kicked out of so many countries, given the Holocaust. I mean, given all these things, and of course, that line can gets overplayed by Zionists at times. But I think they deserve a homeland somewhere. That's fine. I think to take mandatory Palestine that existed under Britain after the Ottoman Empire collapsed. Ship all of the Jews down there, establish the state of Israel over the settlements of Arabs, kick out 700,000 of them whenever they understandably fought back over having their land taken from them. Mm-hmm. I just think that there were Zionists that wanted to put Israel in Alaska. That was a possible thing.
Uganda,
right?
And then Argentina was the other one.
Yeah, so
they picked the worst possible
They picked the
one.
worst spot that was going to ensure a century of bloodshed and tragedy on both sides.
Because when I hear that phrase, all I hear is ethno-state, and I wouldn't support an ethno-state for any other ethnicity.
Because the argument is, well,
so that
they have a right.
to me.
The Jewish people have a right to a homeland because of all the oppression they've went through. Hold on. Explain that logic to me. I'm not even saying you per se,
sure.
Yeah.
but because that's what Malcolm X argued about black people. They should have got their own country. They were going to go to Malcolm X's plan was to go to the UN to advocate for a separate black state in the United States, which on the face of it at the time was not an insane idea. In hindsight, obviously that's kind of ridiculous, but that's also okay. What that's kind of the point is we can look backwards and say. Why, unless you believe that being Jewish is somehow fundamentally different from being a non-Jewish, which absolutely the radical strains of Judaism do believe that, which is part of the problem. And people say, well, it's the Jewish Zionist project is secular. It's I don't buy that in the same way that I don't buy, I have the Petersonian perspective on I'm not religious. It's like, okay, but all of your morals and all of your sensibilities are conditioned by a religious framework. So this idea that seculars are saying, well, we had a tie to the land 3,000 years ago. It's like, that's a religious argument as far as I'm concerned. Sure. If you're invoking your ties to the past 3,000 years ago, or even a collective identity, as soon as you start appealing to this, our people, it's like, well, hold on. You're human. We're people or whatever. It's like, well, who's drawing these lines around who is your people and who's not? Because I view people, it's cliche and all that shit, which is unfortunate, but it's like, you know what? It's my fellow Americans, right? It's like, if some, Jewish, black, or whoever was killed, it's like, well, you know what? You killed fucking Americans, okay? And, oh, well, this cheesy bastard. It's like, don't you know we should be separating by ethno? It's like, no, fuck that. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I definitely, I don't support the concept of ethno-states, and that's one of the reasons that I'm not a big fan of Israel as a country, as it currently exists and is run. What I mean is more like if people through free association want to form a country together, and especially if they had a homeland, it was taken from them through thousands of years of crazy ass shit, and then they want to come back together, that's fine. My long-term vision, which what will eventually happen is all the races will blend and cultures will blend, and we will just become one giant like people.
I agree. It's so funny that there are a lot of people who are like, I want my great great grandchildren to be white. It's like, really? I would rather they have my epic sense of humor than my fucking skin color. You know what I mean? It's like,
our values.
And it's so funny because it's it's just like, and that is why I detest radical Judaism. If you are willing to criticize radical Christianity, which you should.
Yep.
If you're willing to criticize radical Islam, which you should.
Yep.
You should hold the exact same standard for radical Judaism.
No.
Right. Exactly. So it's a fucking meme. That's what I'm saying. It's like,
well, that goes back.
And each one, just to finish it, like they're all extreme form of anything is bad. But we have to differentiate how they are bad. Like Christianity has absurd stuff around abortion and whatnot. I believe Islam is less strict on abortion. I could be wrong, but like the doctrines are different. The extreme interpretations are all bad, but they're bad in different ways. And Judaism in particular happens to be a very radical Judaism lends itself to highly ethno-supremacist interpretations, just like radical Islam lends itself to martyrdom and all that, and radical Christianity lends itself to, Christian nationalism and bullshit like that. So,
yeah, I think that goes back to the point of people poisoning the rhetorical well, right? Because if there's enough people that criticize a group out of bigotry, and that happens for decades and decades and decades. Eventually, if you criticize certain aspects of that group and you're careful to caveat it, that can still come across with insufficient caveats and framing that might get lumped in with the people that were bigoted. And that was one of the problems that happened in the in the wake of 9/11. There was the new atheist movement was founded on basically because of 9/11. That's a big thing that made it happen. And there was a lot of, they argued against Christianity, but there was a lot of arguing against Islam as well, which is good. But the critique that people make of the new atheist movement was some of it felt like there was insufficient caveating and a lack of reading the room when it came to the rise of anti-Muslim, kind of Middle Eastern people sentiment. The hate crime rate was going up. At that same time, you're having these people lambast Islam, which is, again, I support that, but you just have to be very, very careful to differentiate yourself from a movement that might use very similar rhetoric for more sinister purposes. And I don't fault people like Sam Harris for that, because I'm a big fan of Sam Harris, but that is the criticism, and I can see a version of that is reasonable.
Yes.
That we just got to be careful.
One of the most morally decrepit culprits in this whole situation are the actual Nazi anti-Semite creeps who hang out in their mom's basement, because they're the ones who have poisoned the ability of sane people to levy reasonable criticism against Israel 100%, to begin with.
100%.
So every moral failure you make echoes. And in this regard, I'm super anti, if you're a fucking actual Nazi that wants to wipe out Israel, here's my chance to, get people to criticize Israel. It's like, your insanity is what prevents people from being able to criticize Israel freely, because you've now fed the caricature that everyone who criticizes Israel is anti-Semitic and all that bullshit. It's like,
absolutely. And that's why it's annoying.
Fuck the extremists.
It's annoying, but that's why we have to caveat our statements and criticisms.
True.
And it sucks. It's sad because you can caveat all day and people will still take you out
right.
of context.
And that's the other thing too, is at a certain point, it's like, you know what? no, like I'm going to criticize Israel as it stands as a state. You want to accuse me of whatever bullshit? I'm more than comfortable in telling you how ignorant you are if you think that the average person who's criticizing Israel is doing so from the same framework as the, creep in their mom's basement who is 4chan memeing fucking swastikas.
In some ways, is that the fault of the way that like legacy media has portrayed these kinds of arguments? They like have been shining a spotlight on real anti-Semitism and like Nazi sentiment amongst extremists, and like failing to show that there's any degree of criticism you can have for Israel. So the audience walks away with like, well, the only people who have anything bad to say about the way that the Israeli government works are these guys.
Right.
Yeah. It's like, is there some blame to be levied there?
Equally, yes. And I would say like MSNBC, Mehdi Hassan, you know who that is? Mehdi Hassan?
Yep.
He talked for years about how Israel has a far-right government. I dismissed that as nonsense because you know what else Mehdi Hassan said was far-right? Was Donald Trump. Now, is Donald Trump have his share of flaws? Next topic we're going to talk to.
No.
In about a few minutes. No, he's perfect. Is he a true American? But if you're going to sit here all day and say Donald Trump's a far-right fascist, you're
spending your capital.
Exactly. You lose the ability then to identify unironic, actual far-right psychopaths like Itamar Ben-Gvir, who has the picture of Baruch Goldstein in his living room, the mass shooter. It's like, so fuck Mehdi Hassan for abusing that fucking word of far-right fascists to the point where, oh shit, we actually should have seen that coming. Yeah, because Donald Trump compared to Itamar Ben-Gvir is a progressive.
There's a lot
SJW or whatever you want to say. Yeah. It's That's what I'm saying. Everyone is to blame. The extremists, anyone who abuses language for their own purposes.
Yeah, it's like save room for your 10. That's what I heard it put back in the day.
That's a brilliant
save
way
room
to
for
put
your
it.
10.
Save room for your 10.
And I am not a fan of Trump at all, and I would love to get into that here in a
we're
minute.
about to.
But yeah, I mean, you can criticize him while still caveating it with obviously there are real Hitlers in the world. Trump is not that. He is not. I do think he is a far right person. I'm not a fan of how he ran our country.
Okay, hold on.
He's
Can we
not
transition?
He's not like a dictatorial person.
Yeah, he's not an actual mass shooter sympathizer like Itamar Ben-Gvir.
Right.
Which I almost don't give a shit what anyone thinks about my or anyone's takes on Israel if you're not aware of Itamar Ben-Gvir and the insanity of the Jewish supremacist movement that is absolutely there.
Yeah. And right before we jump into Trump, I'd like to also say the problem with the poisoning the well rhetorically is that it's kind of like taking advantage. It's exploiting a human cognitive bias of using language as a simulacrum kind of for the group that we're a part of. So you hear, if the media through kind of framing and emphasis and stuff only shows you far like right people, say, being super anti-Semitic, or even far left people in some cases, then later, whenever you hear reasonable people criticize Israel, you hear an overlap in the language, and your brain goes, because that's a big reason why we evolved language and different languages, was that we like differentiated what group we were from. That's just like a natural effect of it. So you hear people use certain words and terms, even like if you hear a person say a word like cis heteronormative or like patriarchy or something, you assume you're like, oh, you're from this tribe, and your brain does that immediately unconsciously. Same thing with criticism of any group. So that's why, as annoying as it is, I try to give as many caveats as possible and criticize the other side too in things, because like the based omniliberal Destiny once said, you should never attack, so long in one direction that you don't stop and look who's standing next to you.
True.
So I try to do keep the balance.
That is why but that's why I say both extremes. Enlightened centrist, baby. All right. Let's talk Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. And then we'll talk about transgender stuff too.
Oh, okay.
We'll wrap it up with that because that seems minimally controversial.
Sure.
You're Canadian, so you don't count morally.
They don't teach us that.
Metaphysically.
No.
But if you
learn the first three, we learn ABC.
Yep.
Which is,
and then Z.
I don't know how many of that is, but that's all they teach us in Canadian school.
Yeah.
We do not count.
They didn't give you the real letters.
Yeah.
Okay. If you were an American, if you were one of the chosen people,
only,
Would you vote for Donald Trump or Joe Biden in this upcoming election if it was held today?
I wouldn't even hesitate.
Joe Biden, baby.
Vote for who?
Donald Trump, baby.
You'd vote for Donald Trump?
Of course. He has a brain.
Okay, this is Jon Pike in Toronto, Canada. I want everyone to know.
Yeah. Freeze my bank accounts.
Yeah. Justin Trudeau, get his number. Okay, Roenn?
My SIN number.
Benjamin?
I would vote for Joe Biden over Trump.
Okay. So you said Donald Trump and you said Joe Biden. I will give the correct answer. The correct answer is Donald Trump. So you're wrong.
Okay.
Now,
yeah. Let's dive in. I know you don't. You've said before that you don't care as much about economic policy, which you said that in some video recently that you care more about their foreign policy, starting wars.
So hold on.
Like
Let's talk about one of the most important issues right now that would matter in an election. Now it's fucking preventing World War III, which was already up there on the list with Ukraine and Russia, which, by the way, is still going on.
Still happening.
As we get dragged into fucking war with Iran or Turkey now. Yesterday, Turkey's mobilizing forces.
Uh-oh.
Did you hear this shit?
Mm-mm.
Turkey's part of NATO, and they met with the head of the head of foreign state for Afghanistan.
The Taliban.
The Taliban. So things are looking real fucking peachy right now, okay? So my priority, as far as I'm concerned, is how about let's not all get fucking nuked tomorrow?
Sure.
Now, Biden, who just shoves money to Ukraine, I'm not a fan of. Trump has said explicitly, and I believe him, that he would not be doing that bullshit. Now, were we right to support Ukraine when Russia invaded? Yes.
I think so.
100%.
Yep.
100%. 2 years later, with no off-ramp and no plan to win the war, should we be just feeding them money? How about no? That's my opinion. I'm not interested in getting a nuclear war with Russia. On top of this whole issue with Iran and Turkey now, and Israel and Palestine. So that was number one issue. Let's not have World War III. I don't trust Biden and the neocons and the military-industrial complex to not push us that direction. Number two, transgender children. No, just kidding. No, number two, actually, illegal immigration. Being in Texas, I haven't necessarily felt the effects of that immediately, but it is certainly interesting to have seen the absolute 180 that New York, Chicago, I don't know about Los Angeles in particular, but New York and Chicago in particular are like, oh shit, illegal immigration turns out to actually be a problem, guys. So now we have to tell people to fuck off.
Did you see the $2 billion that Biden just put into the border wall at the south border of Texas?
To erect, what did he say? It was not a wall. They specifically said, we're not building a wall, we're erecting a barrier.
The barrier of the south border.
But that is an example of the kind of cop-out bullshit of like, you can't even admit that you were fucking wrong for, what are we in 2023? Almost in 2024. Okay, we should have had that shit up a while ago. Now, Trump never got it up. That seems to be coming out wrong. Trump never got it up when I was with him. When I was with Trump back in the day.
He did with Stormy Daniels.
Yeah, he couldn't.
Allegedly.
Well, I think that's part of the controversy. But I'm a simple man. Okay? If I had to decide who is going to be tougher on illegal immigration, Donald Trump or Joe Biden, I'm betting it's Donald Trump. So my two big issues right now, let's not get into World War III and illegal immigration. John, what are your big issues that would push you in the realm of Trump?
Those two are high on the list for me.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, can you tell us why we're wrong?
I mean, my focus is primarily on economics, things like healthcare, things like wages, prices,
nerd shit,
taxes, nerd shit, exactly. And so, in that realm, Joe Biden blows Trump out of the water by every conceivable metric, and we can go through that policy by policy if y'all want. On the topic of foreign policy, I mean, Trump would 100% back Israel. He has said so much.
That's the fucking problem.
So I don't consider.
Isn't it interesting how there's absolutely no politician we can pick right now who would not support Israel?
Yeah, and
that seems odd, doesn't it?
That was a huge letdown on Biden's part, mind you, that he did.
Vivek's whole speech he gave a speech to, it was called like the Jewish Republican Committee or whatever, which is like a major part of the Republican Party, which is like, okay, why is that a major part of the Republican Party? Can
we start a white Republican committee?
Yeah, seriously.
How would that be received, do you think?
Honestly, that is just anytime there's like a specific like Jewish this or that or whatever. Let's do a white version of that. Let's see how people respond to that. It's like whatever. But even Vivek was like, Israel has a divine right and a divine right to act in whatever way they see fit. It's like, how about no? Why? What is this bullshit? Well, every single politician, Israel has a divine right to kill as many people as one.
But any nation has a divine right to go to war. If you can't have a nation if you don't have the right to go to war. What are you talking about?
Rights are granted, in my opinion.
By who?
By the international community.
No,
I think. You have the ability to do anything you want. So people can do anything they want. You can technically go out and kill people in the street, but then there are consequences by a broader legal system. That's why we established the UN.
But it only goes up to. But okay, well,
hold on. I don't want to get into a rights conversation. Okay,
this isn't a rights conversation. This is there a global government? But hold on, isn't, and there shouldn't be.
But you said. Like a country has a divine right to defend itself. Sure, I can sort of agree with that. I said
a country has a divine right to go to war.
Okay, that's fucked up. Okay, this is
neocon shill.
Yeah, neocon member of what was the Jewish Republican group? We don't know their name.
AIPAC
whatever AIPAC is.
The ADL. SPLC.
It is insane to me. It is insane to me. Think of how divided every Republican and Democrat is on every issue, except for one. Ironclad commitment to Israel.
Well, yeah, because
how about
boomers have
boomers
have a massive hard-on for Israel as a country because they just grew up in that in that culture. As they die out,
radical Christianity is a fucking problem. In case that was not clear, guys.
Oh yeah,
radical Christianity sucks.
There's so many. I didn't really realize this. There's so many radical Christians who believe that huge violence in the Middle East will bring about the return of the second coming. And like I saw a video on X of some guy like interviewing a bunch like Lauren Boebert and a couple other high-ranking GOP members, asking them like, "What do you think about this?" And like, there's this belief by some members that this will bring about the second one. And they're like, "Well, we support Israel and blah blah blah." And it's like, wait, what? Is this what
that is so
that's horrible.
When the boomer side happens, that problem will be cut nearly in half.
Hate that.
I agree.
You are actually a politician making complex decisions on foreign policy, and you're saying, well, in Genesis 3:7, God said Abraham or God will bless the nations that bless Israel. So this is my axiom of my foreign policy.
But
and this is what happens. And
2 degrees, like, well, if that's what
tens of thousands of people are going to die.
If that's what you believe, fine. Don't vote these people in. It's fine to believe that. You can believe whatever the fuck you want. If those people earnestly believe that that's what it's going to take for everyone to go to heaven, cool. Don't vote those people in. They do not represent the population's actual values.
Okay, we established that Donald Trump will get us out of World War III and will be harder on illegal immigration. You know what? Actually, fuck you. Let's talk about economics.
Okay.
Donald Trump's tax cuts were great.
Horrible.
Tell me why.
Okay, so the biggest thing Trump did was the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, the TCJA, gave a 14% tax cut to corporations, brought them down from 35 to 21.
Yes.
Cut the middle class tax rate by 2% from 24 to 22. So corporate tax rate was 21, middle class tax rate was 22%. The middle class tax cuts were set to expire after 6 years. The corporate tax cuts were permanent. 95 or no, I think it
sounds good to me so far. I haven't heard any negatives so far.
85% of the benefits of that tax cut went to the top 1%, went to mega corporations.
Hold on, right there. I want you to know that is the least convincing statistic you've ever said.
Why?
And you haven't said that many statistics because you could just as easily say when taxes are raised, 85% of the rich or 85% of the new taxes are paid by the rich. It's like, of course, people with the most are going to be most affected by anything.
Well, no, because he cut the corporate tax rate by 14%, seven times what he cut the middle and working class tax rate by.
And why is that bad?
Because I believe that middle and working class people should not be paying more taxes than Amazon. And they're currently set to pay.
They don't. Of course not.
They're set to pay.
They, of course, do not do that. You know that.
Well, yeah. Well, because
how
Amazon
many taxes
pays even less.
How much? What was Amazon's tax dollar? What was
Trump?
Tesla's?
Trump made the on the book corporate tax rate 21%. Effectively, they pay less than 5% annually, usually, and people pay 22% in taxes.
Are you aware?
I'm not for
part of the Trump
oligarchy.
Okay, let's make the opposite case. Part of the Trump tax cuts was any money that was repatriated. So any capital dollars that were locked in China could be brought back here for 0% tax. So that brought several tens, I believe, of billions of dollars back. Trump also changed a law in the tax code where you could immediately depreciate up to a certain amount of new capital assets. Meaning, if I'm XYZ Corporation and I manufacture Cayman Jack margaritas.
God bless Cayman
Which,
Jack.
by the way, if you brought that money back, that was taxed at 0%. And then if you built a factory for, let's say, $1 billion, you could write that entire $1 billion off as depreciated tax expenses. So if you look at a graph of capital expenditures in, when was this, 2017?
Yeah.
So you look at 2017 expenditures. It's little bar, little bar, little bar. And then Q4 of 2017. Maybe it was Q4 of 2018 when they kicked in. Maybe it was Q1 of 2018.
Something like that.
It's a little bar, little bar, little bar. Capital expenses, all the money spent on factories, bridges, not bridges, but factories, machines, all that shit. It's a little bar, little bar, little bar. And then first quarter 2018, massive. And then what happened? Well, as those factories were being built, shit was happening. People were getting jobs. People were building that stuff. And then why was the Trump economy so strong prior to the pandemic? Because all of the factories and all of the capital equipment that was produced in Q1 of 2018 got finished in 2020. And all of the fucking economic benefits were pouring in. And then Anthony Fauci decided that's not going to play. So I
will investigate that claim. I mean,
okay. You should, because it's correct.
In general,
like everything else I say.
I tend to side with working class and middle class people receiving economic benefit. I want the material good of those people increased. I want their well-being to be better. Giving them a 2% tax cut that expires in 6 years did nothing to do that, especially whenever you cut
if you cut their
tax
gas
rates
expense in half
by 40%. You could also do that.
Did you include that in your
if you want to price control gas, you could do that. You totally could.
I think you have a very biased view on this. I think you hate Donald Trump.
So let's talk about the tip stealing rule, where his DOL proposed a rule.
DOL?
Yeah, the Department of Labor. They proposed a rule that would allow employers to pocket the tips of their employees.
That's fucked.
If the employees were paid minimum wage. This law did not pass. It was struck down, but if it was passed, it's estimated that would have cost workers over $2 billion annually. I mean, we can talk about the rollback of the amount of workers that were eligible for overtime pay. So Trump rolled back. He made 1.8 million workers ineligible for overtime pay who previously were, that cost them over $2 billion. So Trump appointed an NLRB, or the National Labor Relations Board, full of corporate lawyers that essentially sided with corporations over unions in every single case that came their way. The deregulation was insane. The amount of toxic waste dumping into water systems that Trump deregulated was very harmful, in my opinion. I mean, just by every single metric. I mean, Trump, if you believe in the concept of trickle-down economics and you're big pro-corporate, then Trump did a great job. I am not. I generally want better material conditions for working and middle-class people. I believe very strongly in unions, which Joe Biden has delivered on very strongly with his NLRB and his DOL.
We'll get to that in a minute.
Sure.
John, how do you feel about it? This exchange just occurred in the past couple minutes.
This is all nerd shit. I don't know enough about ins and outs of specific economic policies to really have a strong opinion.
This is fair.
One way or another on this, but it seemed like the economy was doing really well based off what I've seen. I could be wrong when Trump was in, and it seems like it's doing really poorly when Biden's in.
Have you heard of boom bust cycles?
No, what's that?
Whenever
I've heard.
Okay, well, yes.
Yes.
So whenever massive deregulation.
I'm factoring that in because, like I said, I don't know the specifics well enough. It's entirely possible that could be the dynamic at play. I don't know if that's the case, but like, I think the one thing I would say is like the deference that you put towards like unions and regulation around like labor laws and payment structures and stuff like that for employees. I'm generally against that shit in general. I think people should negotiate their own wages.
Because you're libertarian, right?
Well, because I lean more
cringe,
libertarian.
Which you and I agree is cringe.
That I would say is like the less we do that, the better. But,
okay.
But I'm also in favor of middle class. Like I come from middle class. I want people in that class to be getting everything they deserve. So we're united on that front.
Hey, you don't have to convince us. We believe you.
I feel like Roenn doesn't believe me.
All right, let's talk two things, or let's talk one thing, and then we'll talk about transgender stuff, and then get out of here before Mossad shows up. Okay,
For sure.
because I accidentally left my phone off of airplane mode. Now they know. Unions.
Yes.
I feel about unions the same way I feel about corporations.
Okay.
I agree.
You know what that means?
That you think they can both become corrupt.
That's definitely true. It's definitely part of it. I think they are both useful tools societally that can be corrupt. Yes, both of them.
Sure.
And to say unions, to say I support unions, when I hear that, it sounds like libertarians saying I support corporations. And I get why the libertarians say that, of course, right? These cringy motherfuckers, right?
No.
I get that. Do you get my perspective of getting both of those equally?
Yeah, I mean, I think that...
Can you give me sorry, I'm interrupting. Go ahead.
You're fine. Well, I think that unions can obviously have abuses. They have shown corruption in the past. I mean, if you look at a lot of stuff that happened with Teamsters and the mob, I mean, there's stuff like that happens. But I think in the current climate where unions have been so crippled and weakened coming forward since the 1950s, 60s, 70s, where our membership in unions is at an all-time low in our economy, back whenever we had the highest union membership in the workforce, you could afford a home off of one income and support a family of four. Okay. The benefits were insane. Pension plans, even non-union companies had to match that out of fear that their employees would leave to go to a unionized company. And this could be correlation, not causation, but the graph of the decline of union membership to every single little bump and ridge maps on perfectly to the decline in wages and the increase of cost of living in America since the 1950s. I think that there is an inherent power dynamic differential between corporations, between employer and employee, that most people in the economy are going to be low skill, ultimately replaceable. Why? Because not everybody can be a high earning CEO, And so you as one worker do not have the leverage to demand a fair wage from an employer because they will just replace you. But collectively, workers come together, and that's in our journey out of feudalism into capitalism, which early capitalism was absolutely brutal. Everything that we have today, like weekends, like workers' protections, PTO, overtime pay, all that has come from unions battling tooth and nail, in many cases being assassinated by corporations in the 1800s and early 20th centuries. And that's why we need them. And they need to have laws that obviously govern the abuses that can happen, but they have been absolutely instrumental in building the backbone of the American middle class. And without unions leveraging collective bargaining power to level the playing field with corporations and their power to, replace their workers and pay them starvation wages, that has built our country. So that's why I say that I support unions.
Okay.
Given the fact that our climate currently is so anti-union, and now with Joe Biden, that's beginning to turn around because of his NLRB and DOL reforms. That's why the UAW has been able to secure a 25% pay increase over
what were they making
over the next 4 years. I'd have to look at the exact numbers, but
isn't that important? Because what if they were making like $50 an hour?
They were not. It is.
I know. I would assume
I knew this number a month ago.
Saying,
I forgot, but their wages have been stagnating for many, many years, while CEO pay has gone up by like 400%. Corporate profits have skyrocketed in the past few years, and their pay stagnated. So
fair.
It's fair to me.
How do you feel about everything that was just said, John? Do you find that convincing?
No.
Nice try, asshole.
Mr. Libertarian over here. Mr. Dave Rubin, deregulation of the cement industry.
Yeah.
Heck, man.
Who cares if a building collapses?
We
let the market decide, man.
We have a difference on prescription here. That's fine. We
both
want the same result.
We can do an if-so map about it. I believe that free market systems tend towards the destruction of the working class unless they can collectively
I don't believe in
bargain.
completely free markets.
Okay.
I believe in minimal regulation.
Okay.
But which probably we both do.
Fair.
It's just we define minimal differently, would be my guess. No one wants extra.
Sure.
Or very few people want extra regulation for no point.
You're not a socialist.
I don't want over. I mean, as soon as the regulations hurt the economy or become inefficient.
Right,
I don't understand this stuff well enough to really have a strong perspective.
That's fair.
So,
let's talk optics. The only thing that matters nowadays.
Yeah. Optically, Trump is better than Biden because he can actually talk and he's funny.
How do you feel about the term market socialism?
Like Vosh?
Is that what he is?
Yeah, I'm fine with market socialism.
Okay, well now I'm against it. I was pro it until I found out that Vosh
No,
was for it, so never mind. I was like, that to
I've
me,
never heard it before. I was pro it for 2 seconds and immediately came against it.
It's like I think George Bush or someone talked about compassionate capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
It's like market socialism is just compassionate capitalism.
ESG. That's all that is.
Market socialism, to my understanding, just to give a quick little TLDR, is essentially just a market economy where every company is a co-op. It is cooperatively owned by workers, more or less. And so you still have market systems which are very powerful and are better at allocating resources than central planning tends to be.
Yeah.
But you have an economy that is collectively owned by workers who own companies who still vote, and there's still a hierarchy, but they just vote on it, more or less, which is what a co-op is. And it is more of a stakeholder than a sharetholder system.
Okay, let's end with this. We got about 15 minutes or something like that. Let's not talk about trans stuff. No, that's talked about too much now.
We will revisit that at a later date.
That's
with the
fine.
Trans kids. I have some points, but later.
That's fine. Well, first off, let me open it up because I was gonna. This worker co-op thing might be interesting because all these people who are like, well, if we just had worker democracies, it's like,
we can.
Oh my God.
You're allowed. Go start one.
They work very well in Erie.
Okay, hold on. Before we talk about worker democracies, or if we do, would either of you guys like to bring up any topic that has not been brought up so far?
I have a quick one.
I'm all for quickies.
Real quick. I want to challenge because we had an exchange on that panel on Wick TV about every belief system being inherently religious. And I have figured out why I think
quick.
that bothers me so much. I think it might be. I'll try to make it very succinct.
Okay.
The verbal assassination is coming.
Shoot.
No, I think that if you want to redefine the word religion to just mean any belief system, fine. But I think what that does is we need to have a word to describe monotheistic doctrines. And I think the attempt to say that every belief system is a religion.
We have a word for that. It's monotheism.
I think that the attempt to
So anyway, worker cooperative. Sorry.
I think that the attempt to say that every belief system is a religion is a attempt to, on the part of Christians or Muslims or monotheists, that if you can draw a linguistic equivalence between two things, then you draw an epistemic equivalence between them. And so, to me, a religion, it is an unfalsifiable dogmatic belief system that worships a deity, and it makes supernatural claims that are definitionally, they are unfalsifiable. I do not accept that my framework of being an empiricist and having faith that my sense data is accurate, which is the bare minimum axiom that you have to have in order to live or function at all, which we all accept.
I disagree.
I will not accept that those two things are epistemically equivalent, to say that I axiomatically assume God exists versus I assume that this jar is real, because one is testable and falsifiable and one is not. And I think that's a clever trick on behalf of people like Peterson who really do want to push a Christian to more normalize unfalsifiable religions.
Unfalsifiable.
Right. That's what a religion is.
Let me ask you a question.
You can't test it.
Can a male become a female?
I thought you said we weren't going to get into trans stuff.
Well, then
Paul.
you brought this bullshit
You're
up.
going back on your word.
Stabbing you with your own logic.
I think if we had advanced enough medical technology, a male could become a female. We currently don't have that. So no, at the moment.
Is gender identity a falsifiable thing?
I don't subscribe to the self-ID framework. So
okay.
Yeah, I think it is a claim
you're
that
canceled.
You can make against
GG,
somebody.
everyone. Yeah. Sorry, I thought this guy was pro-trans over here. Turns out he's fucking Donald Trump of
the comment I wanted to
hating
make
trans people.
Is like, well, but your axioms aren't based off of whether or not you perceive your sense data to be accurate. Your axioms are based off of whether you consider anything in the world to be good versus bad. And that is a faith claim. And that, to me, and I think Paul feels a similar way, maybe not, that's what I mean when I say everyone's religious, because you cannot logistically justify that faith claim that humans existing is good, because that, to many people, is the top, if not almost to the top of their value hierarchy.
It's
and
an axiom.
But like the justification of, well, I trust my sense data, that has nothing to do, in my mind, with whether or not you consider one thing to be good versus bad, because they're completely separate fields.
There's truth claims and value claims, right?
Exactly.
And so for truth claims, all we have to believe is our sense data is real and that we are able to use logic to say that 1 + 1 is 2.
Sure.
Right? For value claims, those are axiomatic, and I concede that it is completely, I just pick them based on the nature of my brain, which is partially comes from evolution and partially just the arbitrary nature of how I happen
That's
to
what
be
I
born.
mean when I say everyone's
Why
religious.
is that religious?
Well, let me.
Because just
Go
like
ahead.
real quick, my problem with that is that I think once you concede that linguistic equivalence, you concede an epistemic equivalence in the validity of both of those claims, that you get to now say that science, the pursuit of truth based on theoretically trying to prove ourselves wrong and testing and verifying things, is equivalent to saying I believe God is real just because I do. Those two things cannot be equivalent.
Let me stab you in the back with your own words in a way that I think you'll appreciate.
Okay.
That's a bold claim.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Let's hear it.
I understand your point about it's essentially drawing an epistemic equivalency between a clearly superstitious, monotheistic, or whatever, polytheistic,
Unfalsifiable claim.
sure, and a secular one, broadly speaking.
Yes.
When people go to a Red Hot Chili Peppers concert, I'm using RHCP because they're my favorite band, and they really enjoy the music, the experience that they're having, do you think that it is fundamentally different from the experience that someone who goes to a Christian rock band has and says, oh, I felt the presence of God? I mean, I went to a Creed concert, although that's kind of a bad example because they're not.
They're coming back.
All right, let's say
They're going on
Creed,
tour next summer.
hardcore Christian band. I'm saying this because I went to like church camp and all this shit and bought into all this stuff, right?
Sure.
Go to a Christian concert. And I was like, oh my God, they're playing Christian music and I feel the Spirit of God. You could literally measure my emotional sensitivity on a physiological thing, right? In my mind, the experience that I was having listening to Christian religious music was utterly identical to the experience of a secular person listening to Red Hot Chili Peppers play Under the Bridge, right?
Yeah, I would say
there's nothing fundamental differently there because there is such a thing as God interjecting in that.
I would say
experience.
that emotion is probably pretty similar, and Freud called that the oceanic feeling that precedes religion. It's just an experience that we have from a sense of, he believed, community and a connectedness with our fellow man.
Okay, that sounds good to me. That's what I refer. I guess I'm referring to that oceanic landscape of, because we're social creatures. And all of our frameworks come from a motivated frame and utility. We discussed this way at the beginning, I believe.
Right.
That's what I mean by everything is religious. And the reason that I'm insistent on that language is because I do not think it is... I think it provides us more utility to identify secular extremism with the same religious ferocity as classic monotheistic or polytheistic religious extremism. What do you say to that?
I would say that I want to reserve that word for whenever secular belief systems become dogmatic and unfalsifiable.
To the point where they're basically religious.
Yeah, because you could say that tankies are kind of quasi-religious.
I'd absolutely, well, depending on the tanky, but yeah. Or just nationalists who are willing to strap a bomb to themselves.
Yeah, because I think fundamentally their belief is not verifiable, it's not testable, it's not falsifiable, it is dogmatic. That's the distinction that I draw, because if we do not get to differentiate those words, then what happens, in my view, is that you draw an equivalence, again, between a person like me, who is open to changing my mind on any issue given sufficient evidence, versus a religious person who literally believes that there was a talking snake in a garden and a flood and all this stuff, and there were two people, that the whole gene pool came from them. And we have to differentiate the validity of those truth claims. So I worry that if you use the word religion,
maybe
you just say that it's all equally valid.
I don't know.
Accept that.
Maybe I don't fully understand why we would need to differentiate between those two. Because to me, religious extreme... Now, look, we just spent a whole great deal of time criticizing religious extremism. So I am fully sympathetic to like, hey, this particular belief system, along with this particular belief system, and along with this particular belief system, have their unique pathologies to them. I don't see why we wouldn't apply that same lens to every other belief. Postmodernism, whatever enlightened liberalism or however you want to call it, every system that draws upon axioms or that, is derived from axiomatic claims, those are all faith-based at some point. All people are created equal before God, and everyone deserves the rights of law. No. Why? That's a religious faith claim.
I would just say that not all axioms are equivalent. Like the axiom of...
They're not true. This is the postmodern question. Not all axioms are equally viable if you act them out.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Yes. I would agree.
Of course.
That's the embodiment.
Like a self-correcting, falsifiable system like science, when done properly and when not... Because the failure of science is a lack of good science. It's never too much science. And the answer to bad science is always more better science.
I don't know. See, it's the question of, well, should we run horrific, gruesome experiments?
No, because there has to be ethics
if it's just
guiding
pure science,
our scientific process. Okay. And those are axiomatic.
And religious. What are those ethics? You can't derive those ethics scientifically.
I would say that we derive them from the nature of our brains and our preferences.
Okay, and that's just magic nerd shit.
They are axiomatic.
A substitute for Christian
They
morality.
are axiomatic, but we have to have values. I mean, we don't.
Of course, but values cannot be derived through science.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
So I think,
hence,
to me, the disagreement
all value systems.
They're emotional. They come from our emotions.
Sure, but that's when you say something's emotional, it's like brushing it off. Well, you're just emotional. It's like,
well, I mean, they're valid
in that our fundamental cognitive processes are emotional, in that they matter more than anything. Sure, all of our reason is emotional because you are using reason towards something, and you have to be in a certain emotional state to even access reason to begin with.
Yeah, because again, I mean, we said earlier that we define our ends with emotion, and then we use logic to get to that end point. I see a child in Gaza being blown up. That makes me feel very bad and disgusted, and I make a value judgment that I think that this is bad, and I want to do what I can to prevent this from happening. That's me making a value claim, and then using logic to say, well, what can I do with my limited reach and 270-something subs on YouTube to make this happen less, and at the very least, I can just talk about it.
And that exists in a hierarchy of value.
Yeah.
And that hierarchy of value is completely divorced from any type of logical or scientific methodology.
Yes.
Because I think the abortion thing we talked about.
The abortion thingy. Exactly. Which is why I'm like, I try not to get into that topic too much, because I don't really have a specific stance on it. I just try and inject as much logic as I can into it, because I think more logic is better, but we can't rely only on logic. My thought, and I know we're running out of time here, it's just like, to you, it seems like there's a huge amount of real estate between articulated religions, or maybe highly articulated religions like Christianity or Islam or Judaism, and people who believe in science or this and that. To me, they're not very far apart. And that's why I don't see an issue in using that same term for both. But I understand because I'm a huge proponent of let's be careful with our language and not abuse it to the point where we lose our categories when they're necessary. My disagreement with you is that they don't seem that different to me.
So would you both be okay with just getting rid of the term belief or belief system and just having the word religion? Because it would just mean the same thing.
I don't know what that...
I mean,
they're pretty close to me. At that point. They're pretty close.
Okay. But we can deep dive it later on a stream.
Oh, we can.
Absolutely.
And you live in Arlington, so we can fucking...
I do.
Sorry, we shouldn't say that. 2107 on Arlington Drive doesn't own any firearms.
Okay. Not a single one.
Let's take 2 minutes here as we wrap up. Would you guys like to have any final comments on whatever the fuck just occurred over the past 2 hours? John?
End all unions?
End all unions? Political violence is justified whenever I feel like it.
Any political
get rid of unions.
violence is always justified.
That's the takeaway.
And
Benjamin?
Yeah, I would just say I think economics are very important whenever we look at the difference in the substantive policy record between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. I think it becomes very apparent that Trump primarily serves corporate interests. And I think if you care about the well-being of working and middle-class people, I think Joe Biden objectively has a better policy record to meet that end when it comes to unions, whenever it comes to wages, whenever it comes to workers' protections, all that kind of stuff. So, vote blue no matter who. No, I'm kidding. But Joe Biden did win my vote. And I started off as a big Bernie bro. I was not a fan of Joe Biden at all, but he won me over with policy after policy that I was very surprised because I thought he was just going to be a standard corporate hack. And he is in some ways. He is on Israel, but he did good enough in policy that he won my vote. And I will be voting for Uncle Joe in 2024. So I hope you all do the same.
Well, let me just wrap up here, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. That is it for us today. There's no words on it. To play us out, what does that mean? To end the show?
Play the gender fucks theme.
That is it for us today, and there's no words on it. To play us out, what does that mean? All right, we'll do it live. That is it for us today. Okay, you know what? We'll do it live. Fuck it. We'll do it live. Don't write it and we'll do it live.
I think Mossad has shut down our stream.
Fucking thing sucks. That is it for us today. We'll leave you with a cutaway of Sting and a cut off his new album. Take it away. You 2-bit motherfucker comes here, gives me a shit teleprompter. I think we're good, Mike.